Grace Mitchell woke at 5:15 on Tuesday morning, just as she had for the past 12 years. Her small apartment in Riverside held the comfortable warmth of a life built on modest means and honest work. The coffee maker sputtered to life as she tied her graying hair into a neat bun, her reflection in the bathroom mirror showing a woman of 48 who'd earned every line on her kind face. The framed photo on her nightstand captured her greatest joy, her daughter Tanya in her nursing school graduation gown. Grace had cleaned houses, worked double shifts at the senior center, and stretched every dollar to make that moment possible. Now Tanya worked at Children's Hospital, saving lives while Grace continued her own quiet calling. For 7 years, Grace had cared for Alina Whitmore, a retired federal prosecutor battling early-stage dementia. The job brought Grace to Pinecrest Estates 3 times weekly, driving the 20-minute route from her neighborhood to the gated community, where old money lived behind iron gates and perfectly trimmed hedges. Alina trusted Grace with everything: her medications, her meals, her memories when they slipped away. More than that, she trusted Grace with her Mercedes, insisting her caregiver use the vehicle for errands rather than ride the unreliable bus system. "Grace, your family," Alina would say, pressing the car keys into her hand. "What's mine is yours. Don't you dare argue with me." That Tuesday morning, Grace loaded her canvas bag with Alina's prescriptions to refill, the grocery list for their weekly meal prep, and her worn Bible. She whispered a quick prayer before starting the Mercedes, the engine purring with expensive precision she'd never quite gotten used to. The sunrise painted Riverside in shades of amber and gold as Grace drove toward Pinecrest Estates, gospel music playing softly on the radio. She had no way of knowing this ordinary morning would become the day her quiet dignity met absolute injustice. Part 2: The Stop. Grace's hands rested lightly on the Mercedes steering wheel as she turned onto Pinecrest Boulevard. The neighborhood's pristine beauty always struck her. Towering oaks lined the streets like cathedral columns, and morning dew sparkled on manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than her monthly rent. She was 2 blocks from Alina's home when the flashing lights exploded in her rearview mirror. Red and blue strobes shattered the peaceful morning as a patrol car appeared from nowhere, siren wailing with aggressive urgency. Grace's heart dropped into her stomach. Her hands began to tremble as years of warnings from her late father echoed in her mind. "Baby girl, when they pull you over, you be respectful, hands visible, no sudden moves, come home safe." She eased the Mercedes to the curb and rolled down her window, placing both hands on top of the steering wheel where they could be clearly seen. The autumn air felt suddenly cold against her face as she watched the officer approach in her side mirror. Officer Bradley Nash circled the vehicle like a predator, his boots crunching on fallen leaves. His face twisted with something that looked like satisfaction when he reached her window and saw her brown skin behind the wheel of luxury. "License and registration," he barked without greeting or explanation. "Yes, sir, of course." Grace's voice remained steady despite her racing pulse. "My license is in my purse on the passenger seat. The registration should be in the glove box. May I reach for them?" Nash's hand moved to his weapon. "Real slow. Any funny business and we've got a problem." Grace moved with careful deliberation, retrieving her license from her worn leather purse, the one Tanya had given her last Christmas. Her fingers shook slightly as she opened the glove compartment and found the registration bearing Alina Whitmore's name. Nash snatched both documents from her hand. His eyes narrowed as he studied the registration, then her face, then back to the paper. "This your car?" The question dripped with accusation. "No, sir. It belongs to my employer, Mrs. Alina Whitmore. I'm her caregiver. She allows me to use her vehicle for errands and transportation to her home." Nash's cruel smile spread across his face like poison. "Your employer, right, and I suppose you've got proof of that." Grace's stomach knotted. Mrs. Whitmore can verify everything, sir. Her home is just 2 blocks that way, or I can call her. Step out of the vehicle. Nash's command cut through her words like a blade. Part 3. Dignity Under Fire. Grace opened the car door with slow, measured movements, her years of church training keeping her voice calm even as fear coiled in her chest. The morning air felt colder now, or perhaps it was the ice in Officer Nash's stare as he positioned himself between her and the Mercedes. Turn around, hands on the hood. Sir, I promise you I work for Mrs. Whitmore. I've been her caregiver for 7 years. If you'll just let me. Nash's hand shot out and grabbed her arm with bruising force, spinning her around and slamming her against the car's hood. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs as her cheek pressed against cold metal. I said hands on the hood. His voice held dark pleasure. You people always think you can talk your way out of everything. Tears stung Grace's eyes, but she blinked them back. Not here. Not in front of this man who wanted to see her broken. She spread her hands flat against the hood, the indignity of the position making her heart ache. A second patrol car arrived, its presence drawing neighbors from their morning routines. Mrs. Chen from the corner house stepped onto her porch with her phone raised. Mr. Rodriguez paused his jogging to watch from across the street. Grace felt their eyes on her, a black woman in simple work clothes being treated like a criminal in their safe, expensive neighborhood. Officer Torres searched the vehicle. Nash called to his partner, a younger man who emerged from the second car looking uncomfortable. Nash, shouldn't we verify her story first? Torres suggested quietly. The registration's right there. Search the vehicle, now. Nash's tone allowed no argument. Grace stood frozen as Torres opened the Mercedes doors, his search half-hearted and apologetic in its movements. Her canvas bag sat on the passenger seat, Alina's prescriptions, the grocery list, her Bible with its worn leather cover. Nash grabbed the bag and dumped its contents across the hood. Pills rattled in their pharmacy bottles. The grocery list fluttered away on the breeze. Her Bible landed open, its pages bent. Well, what do we have here? Nash held up the prescription bottles, reading Alina's name printed clearly on each label. Alina Whitmore, so you're not just a car thief, you're robbing old ladies now too. Those are her medications. Grace's voice cracked despite her best efforts. She sent me to refill them. Please, sir, just call her house. She'll explain everything. Nash's laughter was cruel and loud, meant for the growing audience of neighbors. Part 4. The Breaking Point. The morning sun climbed higher as more residents emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion that shattered Pinecrest Estate's usual tranquility. Grace counted at least 8 people now watching, most with phones recording the scene unfolding on their pristine street. Nash seemed to feed off the attention, his movements becoming more theatrical as his audience grew. He opened each prescription bottle and poured the pills onto the Mercedes hood, mixing Alina's heart medication with her blood pressure pills and arthritis relief. Please don't do that, Grace begged, thinking of Alina who needed those medications sorted and timed precisely. Mrs. Whitmore needs those. She has a specific schedule. Shut your mouth, Nash backhanded her across the face. The slap echoed across the quiet neighborhood. Grace's head snapped to the side, her cheek burning with pain and shame. She tasted blood where her tooth had cut the inside of her mouth. Several neighbors gasped audibly. Torres stepped forward, finally finding his voice. Nash, that's enough. We need to. She resisted. Nash spoke loudly, clearly for the cameras. You all saw that. Subject became combative during a lawful stop. I never, Grace started, but Nash grabbed her shoulder and forced her down to sit on the curb. Stay there and keep your mouth shut while I figure out what other crimes you've committed. Grace sat with tears streaming down her face, no longer able to hold them back. This wasn't supposed to happen. She'd done everything right, been respectful, explained clearly, offered to prove her story. But none of it mattered to this man who decided her guilt the moment he saw her skin. Mrs. Chen approached cautiously from across the street, her phone still recording. "Officer, I've seen this woman here before. She comes to take care of Mrs. Whitmore. She's telling the truth." Nash whirled on the elderly woman. "Ma'am, step back before I cite you for interfering with police business." "But I'm trying to help." "Step back." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Mrs. Chen retreated, but her phone remained pointed at the scene, capturing every moment of injustice for a digital audience that was already growing as neighbors began streaming the confrontation live. Grace closed her eyes and prayed silently, the words her grandmother taught her flowing through her mind. "Lord, give me strength, give me peace, let your justice prevail." When she opened her eyes, Nash was pulling zip-tie restraints from his belt, the plastic strips gleaming in the morning sun like instruments of torture. Part 5: An Unexpected Ally. The zip ties cut into Grace's wrists as Nash yanked them tight behind her back. She winced but didn't cry out, refusing to give him the satisfaction. Her mind raced through possibilities: how to reach Alina, how to prove her innocence, how to survive this nightmare with her dignity intact. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Nash spoke into his radio with false authority. "I've got a female suspect in custody for grand theft auto and possession of stolen prescription medications. Need a tow truck for the stolen vehicle." Torres stood several feet away, his face pale with internal conflict. He'd removed his hat and kept running his hand through his dark hair, a nervous gesture that spoke volumes about his discomfort. Then a voice cut through the tension like a bell of hope. "Officer, what on earth is happening here?" Margaret Sullivan stood at the edge of Alina's driveway, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. At 72, Alina's next-door neighbor commanded respect through decades of community leadership and an unshakable moral compass. "Ma'am, police business. Please return to your home." Nash's tone tried for authoritative but came out defensive. "Police business." Margaret's eyebrows rose as she took in the scene, Grace restrained on the curb, Alina's medication scattered across the car hood, the growing crowd of neighbors. "That woman is Grace Mitchell. She's Alina Whitmore's caregiver and has been for 7 years. What possible reason do you have for treating her this way?" "This suspect was found operating a stolen vehicle." "That vehicle belongs to Alina, who specifically allows Grace to use it. I've witnessed this arrangement countless times." Margaret pulled out her own phone. "In fact, I'm calling Alina right now to confirm what everyone in this neighborhood already knows." Nash's face reddened with anger. "Ma'am, I'm warning you." "Warn all you like, young man, but I'm not some frightened civilian you can intimidate." Margaret's voice carried the steel of someone who'd spent 50 years fighting for civil rights. "I'm calling Alina, and then I'm calling my attorney, who happens to be very interested in police misconduct cases." She dialed with steady hands while maintaining eye contact with Nash. The phone rang on speaker for everyone to hear. "Hello?" Alina's confused voice emerged from the device, thick with sleep and medication. "Alina, dear, it's Margaret. I'm so sorry to wake you, but there's a police officer here who seems to think Grace has stolen your car." A pause, then Alina's voice grew sharp with protective fury. "Put him on the phone, right now." Nash's confident expression began to crack. Part 6: The Truth Emerges. Officer Nash stared at Margaret's phone as if it might explode. The confidence that had fueled his cruelty drained from his face, replaced by the first flicker of doubt. But his pride wouldn't let him back down completely. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I need to verify identities before." "This is Alina Whitmore, and I'm telling you that Grace Mitchell is my caregiver and has my full permission to use my vehicle." Alina's voice carried the commanding tone of a woman who'd spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor. "She's on her way to refill my prescriptions and pick up groceries. Now remove those restraints immediately." Nash's jaw clenched. "I still need to verify your identity, ma'am. Anyone could claim." "My home address is 427 Pinecrest Boulevard. My date of birth is August 3rd, 1952. My driver's license number is F273894. And if you need further verification, you can call Judge Patricia Whitmore at the county courthouse. She's my daughter." The words hung in the air like a death sentence for Nash's career. Torres inhaled sharply. Several neighbors exchanged knowing glances. Grace felt hope bloom in her chest for the first time since those lights had appeared in her mirror. "Your daughter is a judge." Nash's voice had lost its sharp edge. "County Circuit Court, and she takes a very dim view of officers who abuse their authority, particularly when targeting innocent people." Eleanor's voice grew stronger with each word. "Now, I'm getting dressed and I'll be there in 5 minutes. Margaret, please stay with Grace until I arrive." The call ended, leaving Nash standing in the middle of the street with his credibility in tatters. The watching neighbors had multiplied. At least 15 people now bore witness to his humiliation. Their phones captured every second, live streams accumulating thousands of viewers as the video spread across social media. Torres approached his partner quietly. "Nash, we need to release her, now, before this gets any worse." "Shut up, Torres." But Nash's hands shook as he reached for his knife to cut Grace's restraints. Even if she's telling the truth, she still could have shown proper identification. "I showed you my license and the registration," Grace said softly, rubbing her bruised wrists as the zip ties fell away. "I answered every question respectfully. You chose not to believe me." Nash opened his mouth to argue, but Margaret stepped between them like a shield. "Don't say another word, officer. Everything you've done has been recorded. Every slap, every insult, every moment of unnecessary force." The sound of a car door slamming made everyone turn. Eleanor Whitmore emerged from her house, moving faster than Grace had seen her move in months. She'd thrown a cardigan over her nightgown, her white hair uncombed, her face flushed with righteous anger. "Grace," Eleanor rushed to her caregiver, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Are you hurt?" The tenderness broke something in Grace. She buried her face in Eleanor's shoulder and finally let the sobs come. 7 years of love and trust offering sanctuary after the cruelty she'd endured. Nash stood frozen, watching his authority crumble to dust. Part 7, Justice Arrives. Eleanor held Grace for a long moment before turning to face Officer Nash with the full force of prosecutorial fury she'd honed over 3 decades in federal courts. Her hands trembled, whether from medication or rage, Grace couldn't tell, but her voice rang clear and sharp. "Officer, what is your name and badge number?" Nash straightened, trying to reclaim some authority. "Nash, badge 4721. "Officer Nash, do you understand that you just assaulted an innocent woman in front of multiple witnesses? That you destroyed private property, scattered prescription medications, and used excessive force during an illegal stop? This was a legitimate investigation." "Of what crime?" Eleanor's question sliced through his excuse. "Grace was driving legally, with my full permission, in a vehicle registered to me. She provided identification and a clear explanation. What about this situation justified physical violence?" The gathered neighbors murmured agreement. Mrs. Chen spoke up from the crowd. "He slapped her. We all saw it." "He dumped her belongings on the street," added Mr. Rodriguez. "Called her you people," Margaret contributed, her tone sharp with disgust. Nash's face cycled through shades of red as he realized the depth of his mistake. Torres had backed away completely, standing near his patrol car as if distance might save his career. Eleanor pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my daughter now. Judge Whitmore will want to hear about this directly from the witnesses." "Ma'am, there's no need to involve," Nash started. "No need." Eleanor's laugh held no humor. "You assaulted my caregiver, the woman I trust with my life, my home, my health. You treated her like a criminal based on nothing but the color of her skin and your own prejudice. You absolutely should answer to a judge." Grace watched as Nash's bravado finally shattered completely. His shoulders sagged. His hand moved unconsciously toward his badge as if already feeling its weight lift away. The call connected, and Alina's voice softened slightly. "Patricia, dear, I need you to come to my house. There's been an incident with one of your county officers." 10 minutes later, a silver sedan pulled up with county court plates. Judge Patricia Whitmore emerged in a navy suit, her briefcase in hand, her expression already set in courtroom steel. At 53, she carried her mother's fierce protectiveness and her own well-earned reputation for holding law enforcement accountable. "Mom, are you okay?" She embraced Alina first, then turned to Grace with gentle concern. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm so sorry this happened to you." Nash stood at attention now, sweat beading on his forehead as the judge's gaze fixed on him like a laser. "Officer Nash, tell me exactly what probable cause you had to stop this woman." The reckoning had begun. Part 8, Peace Restored. Judge Whitmore spent 20 minutes taking statements from every witness, while Officer Nash stood silent under her withering gaze. Mrs. Chen showed the video she'd recorded. Margaret provided Alina's phone records proving Grace was expected. Torres, seeking to save himself, admitted his partner had ignored proper procedure from the beginning. "Officer Nash, you're suspended pending a full internal investigation," Judge Whitmore declared. "I'm also filing a formal complaint with the county prosecutor for assault, destruction of property, and civil rights violations. You'll be hearing from my office." Nash's career ended not with defiance but with a whimper. He surrendered his badge to Torres and walked to his patrol car with the defeated shuffle of a man who'd destroyed his own life through hate and arrogance. Grace sat on Alina's porch steps, accepting water and tissues from neighbors who now surrounded her with support. The same people who'd watched her humiliation now offered apologies and solidarity. "I see you here every week," Mrs. Chen said softly, sitting beside Grace. "I should have said something sooner, spoken up for you before today. I'm sorry." "You spoke up when it mattered," Grace replied, her voice hoarse but steady. "That took courage." Over the following weeks, the story spread through news outlets and social media. Grace's dignity under assault became a rallying cry for police reform. Officer Nash faced criminal charges. Torres testified against his former partner, accepting his own suspension as the price for silence. But for Grace, the real healing came quietly. Alina insisted she take paid leave to recover, but Grace returned after just 3 days. "I need normal," she explained, making Alina's favorite tea in the familiar kitchen. "I need to remember that most people are good. That kindness still exists." Alina squeezed her hand. "You're not just my caregiver, Grace. You're family. What you endured, how you carried yourself. You taught this whole neighborhood what real strength looks like." 6 months later, Grace stood in that same courtroom where Judge Whitmore presided, watching Nash sentenced to probation and permanent removal from law enforcement. The judge also ordered him to pay Grace restitution and complete extensive bias training. Grace felt no triumph, only tired relief. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring what happened to her wouldn't happen to someone else. That evening, she sat in her small apartment with Tanya visiting from the city. Her daughter had taken the day off work to support her mother through the sentencing. "I'm proud of you, Mama," Tanya said, tears in her eyes. "You didn't let them break you." Grace thought about that morning in Pinecrest, the fear, the pain, the humiliation. But she also remembered Margaret's courage, Alina's fierce love, and the community that rallied around her. "Baby girl, I learned something through all this," Grace said softly. "Dignity isn't something someone can take from you. It's something you hold on to, no matter what storms come. And when you're blessed, like I was blessed, good people stand beside you until the storm passes." She looked at the framed photo of Tanya in her nursing graduation gown, the testament to years of sacrifice and love. Grace had cleaned houses and cared for others so her daughter could heal people. That was legacy. That was purpose. That was worth more than any amount of hate could diminish. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Grace Mitchell, humble caregiver, had faced injustice and emerged with her soul intact. Her quiet strength had sparked reform, but more importantly, it had reminded a community that character transcends color, that truth eventually triumphs, and that sometimes the most powerful voice is the one that speaks with gentle dignity even when the world screams in rage. She closed her eyes in prayer, grateful for another day, another chance to love and serve, another sunrise promising hope. If this story touched your heart, remember Grace's lesson. Hold on to your dignity, speak your truth with grace, and trust that good people will stand beside you when it matters most.